Hi, I'm Renée Walker, a mindset mentor, speaker, and lover of all things spiritual. I believe that at our core, we are all spiritually wired for love, peace, success, and abundance. Here on the podcast, we're diving into mindset, wellness, and business, but always through a spiritual lens. Let's just say we're going deep, but we're keeping it light. So let's elevate your life from the inside out, one conversation at a time. Welcome to Spiritually Wired. Okay, welcome to the Spiritually Wired podcast. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation today because I have with me Andrea Crisp. Andrea is an empowerment coach. She is a speaker, an author, and she's also the host of the Couragecast podcast, helping spiritually minded women heal their relationship with money and step into abundance with intuition and with ease. She blends counseling, NLP, hypnotherapy, human design, Reiki, and energy work to support deep self-trust and inner healing. Andrea is one of my people. Let's just put it that way. We met maybe over a year ago now. Like it's been over a year, and just had this immediate connection because we have a very similar energy, a very similar way of looking at life. So I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
I am so glad to talk to you. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Okay. So Andrea, you have I would love to start with what your spiritual journey has looked like, because I know that you have a very unique one. I had the honor of being on your podcast, and you and I just had such a cool conversation. And I'd love to bring about like what your spiritual journey's been like.
Wow. Let's just, dive right in, right? Let's just dive right in there, Renee. My spiritual journey, I guess I can say that from a really young age, probably around like 5, I have this memory of like thinking about or experiencing God. Like I remember thinking that I knew God, or like it was very real to me, very experiential. And I grew up in a very evangelical Christian upbringing, and I went to church. My whole upbringing was really centered around that. And I even went to a liberal arts university to study music education with hopes of being a Christian singer-songwriter. And I ended up pursuing teaching instead. That's for a whole other podcast. But I ended up going the teaching route and then eventually transitioned into full-time music ministry and pastoring. So for me, my spirituality really revolved around a religious context. I was always kind of a little bit of a black sheep within that community anyways, kind of pushing the boundaries of what I was experiencing and what I thought God and spirituality was like. And then fast forward many, many years to just prior to the pandemic, and I went through what I call faith deconstruction. And I started questioning absolutely everything that I had ever known. And when it kind of all shook out in the wash, I was kind of left with this, back to when I was a little girl and the experience of what God felt like to me and how I experienced this creator. And my spirituality kind of started on this like adventure to be like, what does that look like outside of the context of a church and a religion, and more in the context of what is spirit and what is God and how does energy work, and exploring all the things that when I was growing up were kind of taboo.
Okay, thank you. And I realized that I did just totally push you into the abyss. We went straight to it, and I got because I love the way that you speak about it, the whole like faith deconstruction. And I think it's something that will resonate with many of our listeners because there is this block sometimes when it comes to spirituality because so many people attach it to religion.
Yeah.
And so when you come to a place of really, it's about going on your own adventure. I love that you use the word adventure, but where you get to redefine what spirituality is to you later on in life. Because when we're children, it's more just put upon us and
Right.
we do what our family really is the same religion. That's the way that we experience it. So I just find it really interesting to learn about people's journeys and also to see how unique and different it is for everyone. It doesn't mean that everyone needs to distance themselves from their religion, not at all, but you can then come back to it with a new outlook, a new perspective. So I really appreciate you sharing it. And maybe we should have had a conversation before.
I'm like, not to drop in too many things along the way. I was like, there's a whole lot of missing pieces, but I was like, let's get you to today. But I think the one thing I would say, spirituality to me now, and is actually going back to what it felt like when I was a kid, is experiencing spirit, experiencing God, creator, universe. Like, I just feel like for me, it is a very tangible experience. It doesn't feel like it's just an out there philosophy or something that I like. I actually feel that. I feel it to my core.
That's so beautiful. That's the whole integration piece that we talk about,
Yeah.
where you're actually living with
Right.
whatever, again, depends on the word you want to associate with what that energy is. But what a beautiful way to describe it. It's so interesting because I usually end the podcast by asking, what does spirituality mean to you? And now I don't know, I guess we're going
Started right from the beginning.
since this is the Spiritually Wired podcast, I think it's okay to say that this was spirit led. We were meant to start right here. And then, because I think that it's so beautiful. So now the work that you do very much, the interesting thing, so very much it surrounds around, it's all about abundance, right? And helping women kind of tap into that ease, the flow, the abundance, and money. And I think it's so important that we bring those two conversations together, spirituality and money. And so I'm curious then, what is it about helping women heal their relationships with money that feels so important to you?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say for me personally, I struggled a lot financially through all of the years, from, graduating from university, going and getting my master's. It was always kind of like in that phase of my life where I just never knew if I was going to ever get any further than I was. And it was always kind of like, okay, just get through this month, this month, this month. And a lot of it really stemmed from the fact that I just didn't feel as though I was supported in what I was doing. Not necessarily from my family, but just in, the careers and the jobs. I wasn't paid very well. I didn't know how to manage my money. So I kind of learned that I just get what you get. Like, that's kind of how I operated. And it really played on my self-esteem and my own personal belief on who I was. And I never took any risks because I was so afraid of losing what little I did have, that I just kind of played really, really safe. And it wasn't until I started really healing my own, you know, mindset, doing all the work that I really needed to shift to believe that I was worthy of having what I desired, that I was already abundant, that it wasn't like that I needed to do something to earn it or be better to get it, or that everything that, God, spirit, universe, has for us is abundant if we will allow ourselves to lean into that trust, and that it doesn't necessarily always have to come from, earning it, or, it can come from anywhere. And just like anything can come from source, like money, abundance, energy, anything can come from source. So it was really kind of tapping into that changed the game for me and started to make me understand that it really wasn't about like, oh, how much can you earn or how much can you do to get? It was about, no, it's all there. I have access to anything. It's abundant. I'm abundant. God's abundant.
Now, you said something like it's allowing ourselves to receive it, really. So if you believe that source is abundant, that you're worthy of it just as you are. There's nothing you have to do. There's no extra course that you have to take or anything that will make you all of a sudden now worthy to receive. So you're already worthy. What can someone do if someone is listening to this and they're feeling kind of stuck as they're like, yes, I believe that I'm worthy and there's this abundant source, but somehow I'm not letting myself receive it. Like, what is the key there?
I feel like you're hitting on all the really like me questions, Renee. So apparently you're like right tuned in today. I have actually struggled with receiving for a majority of my life. In fact, somebody asked me the other day, she said, do you have a problem receiving? I said, actually, yes, I do. So that's a great question. I think sometimes I can speak from my own personal experience, had developed a hyper independence. I can do this myself. I can source what I need for myself. I will do it. I'll take care of me. I don't need to rely on anyone or anything. And that actually kept me from receiving both support, love, money, abundance. And what I really discovered for myself was that it was a way of protecting myself. So it was a defense mechanism against possibly getting hurt, feeling rejected, not feeling like I was worthy of having it, or that I needed to do something to earn someone's support or God's support. So it really, I kind of closed myself off to receiving, because I wanted to prove to myself and to others, like, oh, I can do this. Like, look at me, watch, I'll show you. I can make this happen. And that actually kind of like felt like the kink in the hose, right? Like, so where here, source wants to, let anything flow down to me. And I'm just like over here kinking the hose, being like, no, it's all right. I'm good. Like, I'll take care of it. And I'll just have my little meager like stuff that I have, like, it's enough. I'm okay. And so I think a lot of times we can stop the flow of receiving because we have a belief around what is required for us to do in order to receive it.
The conditions. It's like a whole list of conditions that, for most of us is happening subconsciously. It's not like we're absolutely aware, but there's this whole list of running.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a big one. And do you find that with women especially, like there's just something about receiving for women where we tend to be maybe have an extra few layers there, block it, a few extra kinks in the hose, preventing us from receiving.
Yeah, I'm single. I've never had kids. And I would imagine for women who have had children or are married that, there's levels of, different things that we have to go through, like, being married and being supported by someone who we're married to, having kids, and what we have to do, as women in motherhood. For me, it was kind of the opposite. It was, I don't have somebody to support me, so I do need to be independent, or I have no one to take care of, so it's only me. But all of those things become our own stories. We tell ourselves like, well, I have this person, so I don't need to do that, or I can rely on them. Or, this is the season of life I'm in, so I don't need to, receive anymore. It's time for me to nurture. or I just have to take care of myself. So I'm going to be over here hustling and working hard and making sure I show everybody that I can do it on my own. And I think it doesn't matter what category you fall into at different stages of life. It's really all about the stories that we're telling ourselves and what we're making true and the perceptions we have around our own particular life experience and about what we can have or what's available to us. I always love when I see women who have, been able to be like, yeah, I'm open to receive and I can be supported. And I'm like, how did you do it? Like, tell me all the ways, like, I'm like, I want to be just like you.
I mean, I know for me personally, it's probably been the past 5 years that I have been learning to receive. I didn't even realize that I was blocking myself off from receiving until just again, this whole healing journey, right? We're just peeling back these layers. And I remember getting injured and really recognizing the level of resistance I had around receiving help. And then when you start to actually take an inventory in your life of even the small ways that people will offer to help, to do something for you, to give you a compliment, to all of those small ways. And I realized, wow, every single time I'm shutting down. Like it's just this now I feel it in my heart that my heart will just whoosh, shut down because it feels very uncomfortable. And so it's really just like any other muscle. It's been interesting to be okay with the discomfort of receiving. And the more you do it, just like anything, the better it starts to feel. But you mentioned something just before about like protecting yourself, but that was your way of protecting yourself. So can you speak a little bit more about that? Like why do we feel the need to protect ourselves when it comes to receiving?
For me, I felt like going back to kind of what I shared at the beginning. So like I'm a musician, so I started my career in music, and a lot of what I did was very performative. So I was everything that all the accolades and praise I got were around what I could do in performance. So it was very values based for me.
Yeah.
And so I got used to being able to like showcase what I could do and being praised for it. But in that also, there came a lot of moments where I I gave in to being used for that.
Mm.
So people would monopolize on my ability and my talent. Hey, come and do this for us here. Hey, like, and it all almost became like my skill set and the thing that I was really good at was for everybody else's gain and never for what I wanted it to be. And I started to have to self protect because I found that I was being manipulated and used and then discarded when I was not useful anymore. And this is all in this, in a music context or in, that kind of thing. So I started to really guard myself against people and like start to be like, well, what do you want from me? You know what I mean? Like, why are you asking? What is it that and always kind of like thinking that there was something, another motive that they were asking me for, and starting to guard my skills, guard what I was good at, guard myself from getting hurt, and in the process, not even letting that flow freely. So that kind of also became another kink in the hose. So it became something that, I stopped singing and I stopped playing music and I stopped doing that because I was so guarded from so many years of hurt that I stopped receiving. Like, I guess I'll just kind of, close in. And I got from what I started with, which was like as a kid singing and doing everything, feeling so big and so powerful and so creative. And I just shrunk down, down and down and down and down. And as I shrunk, everything, my whole world just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so did my ability to receive.
Oh, it makes me emotional to think about it, right? It's like you can
Mhm.
see, I can see little Andrea and all her bigness and singing, and then just life happening. And in the process, starting to make yourself smaller and blocking the flow that's always there, but just
Yeah.
the smaller you are, the more guarded, the more protected, the more that we're blocking ourselves off from receiving all of the abundance that always is. And your story is a story that I know many can relate to. How many of us, right? We're just as a kid, you had
Yeah.
that bigness, and then like happens, and we start to play smaller, and again, that might be a place where for women, we're more encouraged to be, small and small voice and not take up space, and that's
Right.
really it's quite validated, the experiences that we have. So such an important story. Now, one of the things that I know that you also really work in and believe in is just the importance of regulating your nervous system. And it goes a little bit with this protection thing, but how do you find that learning to regulate your nervous system plays into all that we're talking about in terms of receiving and tapping into this flow of abundance?
Well, I did a lot of the mindset work when I first started doing the inner healing journey for myself. And I became like very masterful at it, I have to say. But then I would kind of bounce back. Like I would just, get so far and I was like, okay, I have this, this new belief, but then my body was still rejecting the belief. And I didn't realize that what was happening was that I was regulated to a baseline of the old belief. And so when I was trying to integrate the new belief, my body was saying, "Nah, that's not right. We don't want that." And so I would just get dysregulated and I wouldn't be able to actually hold the belief and hold the expansion. And I remember, especially when I started doing money work, that it really came up for me because I questioned so much. I was like asking my coach that I was working with, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I'm doing everything you tell me to do. Like, and I'm doing it so well. Like, I'm like an A plus plus student. I am so good at being a student. And she's like, I don't even know. And that's the crazy thing. She didn't even know. And then I had one friend who said to me in a call, she said, how do you feel? Like, how does your nervous system feel? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I remember saying that to her, like, I don't know what you're saying. And so I kind of went into this deep dive and started to realize how my nervous system was regulated to a certain set point, and that, if I was doing anything that felt unsafe for my body, that I would quickly go into an activated state and then maybe even go into a shutdown and be like, I'm not doing anything. I'm totally frozen. I have an inability to actually even take action here. And I stayed like that for a long time because the inner work around the money was so intense, it was actually dysregulating me. And so when people would tell me to do anything around money, just manifest this, just do this, I was actually getting dysregulated trying to do what they were telling me to do. So I realized that for them, they might have been regulated around that set point. So for them, it was very easy and it's easy to share and explain. But for someone who had not experienced that level of abundance, that was very foreign to my body and to my nervous system and wasn't allowing it. So I started to regulate myself and started to learn what different set points of money felt like in my body. Does that feel safe to receive that? Does it feel safe to receive like a gift card? Does it feel safe to receive, and just as things, and holding them, or am I going to constantly be rejecting what is coming to me, whether it's earned or given? And so that was kind of where I started with it. But also now I find it so important with the women that I work with. When we talk about money, we're talking about nervous system.
Yeah.
And do you feel safe with holding that? And a lot of times, like, again, I didn't know what that meant. So it's really like kind of making it very simple. Like, what does that feel like in your body? Can you describe it? Does it feel like you can hold it? And for me, a lot of it was not just receiving, but releasing debt. So I was
more about
holding on to debt.
right.
And I recognized that I couldn't let the debt go. So I had just like had so much, like it was like I'd get out of debt and then I would save money and then I would get right back into a good amount of debt. And then I'd go back and I'd cycle through because my nervous system was set to have it. And it actually felt safer to have the debt. So here is an interesting thing, kind of going back to piggybacking to what I said before in my smallness. If I had a good amount of debt, a significant amount of debt, I felt safe with that because that would mean I'd have to be small because I wouldn't want to talk about it. I wouldn't want to share about it. I wouldn't want to be exposed or reveal anything. So I would keep myself small.
Right.
And so even in business, for many, many years, I kept myself at this really, really small level because the debt, I was afraid of the debt, but the debt actually was helping me to stay small. It was keeping me small. So my nervous system was like, yeah, that's good. We like that. And so I had to start feeling safe with the debt. I had to feel okay with the debt. I had to start being like, yeah, that's all right that it's here. And that right there, that was probably one of the most difficult things because I felt so much shame around it. To be okay with it was like totally counterintuitive to how we're taught. You know, if you're in debt, you should be ashamed of yourself. You've done something wrong. So for me, it was like, no, just it's here, welcome it. It's just energy. And once you have allowed it to be, move through all that it holds. And so I started to kind of dig through the layers of like, why was I staying in debt? What was the debt representing? Where were the times where I had, gone through, just challenges or different things in my life that I had accumulated it and allowed it to be there and sat with it. And then within a very short amount of time was able to release about 50% of the debt, which was pretty significant. And then I got stuck again. So I had to start again with, it was a whole process but one that I've not really heard people talk about too much.
No, I think it's so, and I think it's again, if you're kind of new to that work, it might feel, come on, there's no way that my nervous system felt safer with the dead. But there's the same thing with, our bodies when it comes to health. I mean, we say we want to feel healthy, but our nervous system can actually be regulated. Like we're comfortable with feeling great or being a certain weight or like it plays out in so many different areas of our lives. It's crazy when you actually start to bring your awareness to that. So I so appreciate you being willing to share that story and just the vulnerability piece, because the other thing that you mentioned that I think is just so powerful is just the shame around it. And again, whether it's debt, whether it's money, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in health, like it plays out in so many different ways. But how we can be holding on to subconsciously to certain situations in our life circumstances, even when there's shame attached to it. So complex.
There's I had a conversation with one of my clients and she's not in debt. And so she's like, I don't really relate to that. But we kind of like opened a Pandora's box, and what came through for her was that she had a sense of owing, like she owed somebody something. And that was also an energy. Like she's like, I've been given a lot from my parents who were wealthy, and a lot came through for me. So I have this shame around I didn't have to do it. And I owe somebody now. I have to do what they say. And I started seeing this show up for clients with parents that had money. I started seeing it with women whose spouses had money or were the main income earners, and the women feeling like I am kind of tethered to this. And now I'm in his, whatever he wants me to do. I can't just do what I want to do because I didn't earn that money. And I've started seeing like, oh, there's this energy of debt is not just a debt energy. Like it's a owing energy. Like I have to do what you want me to do, or that feeling. It's just an energy.
Oh my gosh, I've seen that play out also with so many clients, and it is something that's not talked about a lot.
No.
It really
Yeah.
isn't, and it's very difficult to explain because sometimes it's verbalized as being guilt, like I feel guilty almost that there is, an abundance in my life that I didn't work for. Now,
Right.
this is apart from the whole conversation around how, contribution and the different ways.
Yeah.
We won't even go there. But the reality is if you believe that you are not worthy of the money, then you're always livid. But the way that you described it, I think is so important, which is just that owing energy, because energy is energy.
Yeah.
If you don't feel that you're worthy of receiving it, then wow, like it just shifts the whole way in which you approach it.
And it doesn't make logical sense.
No,
because
it makes sense.
because if we were to logic it, we're like, well, of course not. And that why would I want to feel that way? And we want to talk ourselves out of feeling things or talk ourselves out of the place that we're in. But in reality, the nervous system is not basing itself in logic. It is the way the parasympathetic nervous system works and how the body feels. And so if the body does not feel safe, then it doesn't matter what you're thinking it to be, because the body is saying, no, that's not going to happen. So all the work that we do is, subconsciously, when it comes to mindset, when it comes to, shifting patterns, behaviors, all of that we want to do in conjunction with a healed nervous system. And so that the nervous system is like, yeah, okay, I can hold this. So I love, like, I remember when, people used to talk about expansion embodiment in the coaching industry. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You just maybe like you're imagining yourself richer. I don't know. Like that's, I guess, what I assumed. And it was like, no, it's just feeling safe to have that. Like your nervous system feels okay to be able to possess that. I have a story to share. Can I share a story?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So I want to say it's like 8 years ago now. I was in church and I was in the front row, and a friend of mine came to me and she said her and her husband were moving from Toronto back to Manhattan. And she said, Frankie and I have been chatting and we love to give you our grand piano. And I was sitting in the front, like thinking, oh, that's great. Thank you. Also, no, because I don't have a house and I live in a condo. And where am I going to put a grand piano? Like, I'm not a baby grand, like a grand piano. And so I literally shut her down within 2 seconds. And I remember sitting there and all of a sudden tears started streaming down my face. And I had a very spiritual moment. And I felt as though spirit said to me, Andrea, you're doing to them what you do to me. You're always never able to receive what I'm giving you. I remember like plain as day. And tears streaming down my face. I wiped my face off. I said to her, I'm like, okay, I'll take it. Then I had to start the journey of figuring out where it was going to go because I literally did not have a place for it. A friend of mine was moving to a new home. Her and her husband, they just got married, and she offered to have it. So for 8 years, this piano sat in their beautiful living room in Toronto, and I would occasionally go over and play it. I had a key to our house to go play it, but it wasn't mine. It was my piano, but it was in their home. And just last December, she texted me and said, hey, Andrea, she's got kids now and stuff. She said, we're going to have to reclaim the space back in that room. And I want to know what you want to do with the piano. And I remember having this moment of like, wow, like I was hoping something would have changed in my life by now, that I would have the space to put this piano a lot of shame just started flooding in again. Like, see, you didn't do it. You couldn't make it. Blah, blah, blah. It's all this story started coming out. And I sat with it for a while and I felt Spirit say to me, just release it to me. Just release it. Surrender it. Let it go. And I was like, wow, I'm going to let go of this grand piano. I'm just going to let it go. And I finally came to peace with it. I said, okay, I'm just going to let it go. I was teaching a woman here in Sudbury who is in her 70s, and she's a pastor's wife of a church here. And I just mentioned, I have to get rid of my piano. And she said, oh, really? And she said, well, we'll take it. How much do you want for it? And I said, I actually don't want anything for it. It was given to me. If you can move it, you're welcome to have it. And they did. They paid to have it shipped from Toronto to Sudbury. And here's the crazy thing now. I teach her voice lessons. So a couple weeks after it arrived, her and her husband took me aside and said, hey, Andrea, we know you teach in another location, but we want you to know that if you want to teach in this church for free, you can use the facilities. You don't have to pay anything. In fact, you can even teach on the piano, your grand piano. So every week now, I go in and one day a week, I teach from that piano. And the really cool thing is that it has been such a lesson in receiving for me, that sometimes receiving looks different than what we had originally anticipated and what I was not able to receive before because I couldn't hold space for it. Physically, literally could not hold space for it. Now, God and the universe have provided a way in which I can actually hold space, and I have gifted that piano to the church that I get to use it. I've used it more now than I ever did when it was sitting in my friend's home. And just the other day, the pastor's wife came to me and she said, Andrea, I just want you to know, I'm believing for you to have your own piano in your own house on the lake, just like you want. And I was like, I receive that. So receiving comes in all forms. And sometimes we say we want it. We say we are ready, but sometimes we're actually not. Mm-hmm. And part of the lesson is in learning to literally hold it.
Wow. Okay, well, first of all, you had me in tears with that story because what a powerful example of, like, when you said, I got the chills when you said Spirit, you had the moment with Spirit of just like you're shutting her down, you've been shutting me down. And wow, like how many different ways and times do we all do that, where we shut off the abundance that is present, the love, love. I mean, yes, we all say we want love, but how many times do we shut it down right away? That's such a beautiful example of just what it looks like and how it gets to be different when we're open to different possibilities too, as you said. Now you get to enjoy it in a way that you would have never even thought of.
Yeah.
Your conscious mind would not have thought about that possibility.
Renée, it's so cool. Like when I go into that church now, every Thursday, it's this old United Church. It's a different denomination that purchased the church. But it's got all these really beautiful old stained glass windows. And like I teach in the afternoon and the sun pours through the stained glass. And it's like, it's an empty, no one's there but me and the students that come in and I teach. It is like the most spiritual experience every time. I walk in and it's like God meets me there every time and is like, look at what I can do. Wow. Look at what I can do. And I'm like, yeah, like, why did it take me so long?
Thank you. I get it.
Why did it take me so long?
Oh, but just like you were saying too, it's amazing how like none of it makes sense. First of all,
no,
none of it makes sense, and so just the subtle ways that we will sabotage when something good happens if we're not actually ready to receive it. And so, if you'll allow me to just go back a little bit to so you mentioned what's really important is that we have to increase our capacity to hold it. And I remember actually my friend Brenda Jasmine, you know her, she has the She Flourishes podcast. I remember she had someone that she interviewed, and I unfortunately cannot remember the name of the person, but just about how she manifested this amazing, TED talk, and with it came all of the accolades, and all of a sudden, so much more exposure, and she was not ready for it, and how it took her off guard, because sometimes we think, oh, this is such a great opportunity, and then it happens, but then it's after the fact. Can you hold it? Can you hold what that means? And so often we can't. So that's when we just sabotage ourselves in ways to just make sure that we stay within whatever, capacity we're okay with. So you mentioned, okay, and I love that example of check in with your body. If we go back to money experience, how do I feel receiving $50,000? How does that feel in my body? How does it feel to receive $100,000? Like really kind of checking in. And that, would you say then that what you're calling in, if you're checking in with your body and it doesn't feel good, you can feel resistance. I know personally, I always feel resistance in my heart, but some people feel it in their shoulders, their back, their neck. I mean, there's so many different ways that our body will tell us this doesn't feel safe. How can so once you recognize that, okay, that actually doesn't feel safe in my body, I can see that now. So my goal of, making an additional, let's say 100K this year is my nervous system is not on board. I can see that. How can we work with our nervous system to increase the capacity so that we can receive it?
First of all, I would say thank you to it. Thank you for telling me that, for making me aware that I'm not, that doesn't feel safe yet. And then really letting go of the shame that maybe would come from not being able to receive that, and thinking like, oh, I should be able to. Everybody else is, right? Like everybody else is, being able to earn that or receive that, and then actually, starting to feel what does feel safe, what number does feel safe for me right now. And then just be in the energy of that number. Sometimes I like to write down how I feel in the number. What comes with the number? What does the number feel like? Does it feel comfort, cozy? Does it feel warm? What does it feel like? Do I feel like a buzzing energy? Sometimes people feel it different ways. They might feel more in a mental way, more in a, I feel it more in a sacral splenic way, like in my body. Does that feel good? Do I feel expansive? Like, ooh, or do I feel like, oh? And to me, if I feel like, oh, then I'm like, okay, that's not the number. And then the more I feel good with that, then it's like I just incrementally keep moving it up. And I know that there's going to be a bit of discomfort taking it up to the next number, and that's okay. Like I can still call in that next number and it be uncomfortable because that's the expansion, but just create safety for it. One of the ways for me has been to really be honest about the time I need alone and how I need to not slow down to a full stop, but create more stillness for me to create. And when I'm in my creative flow and I'm in my creative zone, it actually propels me faster. But for me, I just want to get on with it. I'm like, let's just do it. So for me, it's like tuning into that and being like, okay, the more still I am, the more I'm increasing my capacity to hold it because it feels safe. My body feels safe. I feel safe. It can land. I can be there with it. Thank you. I celebrate it. I feel good with it. And then I can find proof for more of it because that feels safe. And I liken it like as a music teacher to performing, right? A kid, oh, I don't want to perform. I don't want to go up on the stage. Everybody's going to laugh at me. But once you have one good experience with performing as dance, musician, and you feel in your body that feeling of like having been up there and people like applaud and you're like, oh, that was so fun. Like, I really liked that. Getting a kid to perform a second time and a third time for a bigger and bigger and bigger crowd becomes a lot easier because they can hold the capacity for it after doing one little recital with 10 people, then a recital of 100, then 500, then 1,000. And all of a sudden, going and playing music or singing, dancing, or performing or speaking in front of a huge crowd doesn't feel as scary anymore because their body has held it. It's found proof that it's okay. So it's by actually taking that step and holding it, but also imagine the amount of people being the numbers of abundance.
Yeah.
You can hold this, then this, and this. And so it's about having the proof, but also feeling safe and letting yourself be in it.
I love this. I think it's so important to remember. So if you're listening, just check in with the number and that it's okay to build it incrementally. Sometimes in the coaching space, you and I both know, right? There's so much encouragement, like go big. And, instead, like, why want to build that business when you can, have a 7-figure business, an 8-figure business?
Yeah.
And then you start to feel almost shame for not having bigger goals, but then all those bigger goals we're not actually feeling safe with. So I love sometimes it's as simple as what does feel good, what does feel safe.
Yeah.
Building on that. And now it gets to stretch instead of just trying to like rip the whole thing apart. You get to actually build with it. I think this is such a really powerful and tangible tool that everyone can leave with.
And can I just share one last thing? Because I know that you do such powerful work. And I think it's really dialing into the tools that you use in your membership and energetically feeling safe and aligned to call it in. And so it's kind of like you can want what you want, but until you're actually ready to hold yourself in a safe space where someone's actually co-regulating with you, like you do in your membership, you're co-regulating the whole community. And when you show up to the calls and you do the work and you're with Renée doing all of these beautiful things, you are actually creating expansion to hold more. It is not, sometimes we're making it more complex than it actually is. And we're, like you said, we're going based off somebody else's goal versus what we feel in tune with ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you're working with somebody like yourself, Renée, then it becomes easy because it's like, okay, yeah, like Renee's going to help me hold this space and then I can grow and have more. So I just want to say that because I think people that are listening to this are going to be like, well, what do I do? And it's like, well, come to the calls, get into the membership. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like,
a lot of power of surrounding yourself with other people, right? That are also increasing their capacity. And when I see you doing big things, it also, for me, helps me regulate to the sense of safety of it's okay for me to call that in as well. It's safe for me to call that in. There's so much power in that. Now, and you're so sweet and kind. I love that you brought up the membership, but can you tell everyone as well about, so I know you have the Aligned Money program, the Align and Empower Mastermind. So for listeners here who just want to be in your world, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, I would love to connect with people on Instagram and to chat with them. But I would say one of the best ways, I'm all about community. Like I do have a free weekly call that if you're just want some support, jump into that call. It's on Tuesdays and we can get to know each other and just have, you can have a safe space to just get to know other people, other like-minded women. And so either of those things. Yeah.
Beautiful. And we're going to link all of that good stuff in the show notes. Andrea, I could keep talking to you for a long time. I just love being in your energy. I just thank you so much for being here and being so willing to share your story. My apologies for throwing you off the deep end of yourself. But look how beautifully it all turned out.
No, I appreciate because it's one of those things where you never know what you're going to say, but at the end of the day, like honestly, Renee, I know when I have conversations with you, it is not surface level. It's the actual like we're talking, and I appreciate that about you. And so, thank you for having this time to chat with me.
Well, thank you. And I want to remind everyone that you are spiritually wired always for love, for success, for abundance, for safety, safety to receive. And I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to Spiritually Wired. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and leave a review. It really makes a big difference for the podcast. And if you're ready to dive deeper and join a soul-led community, come be a part of the Spiritually Wired membership. With weekly live lessons and a rich library of recorded classes, it's designed to support you every step of the way on your spiritual journey. We currently have a special offer where you can receive your first month for half the price. You can find a link in the show notes or come check it out at reneewalkerwellness.com. Until next time, remember to take some deep breaths. Remember that you are spiritually wired.